the brother of James, is writing this. And it doesn't even say Judas of James, which implies brother or kinship of some kind. It says Judas. That's why it's so good to have a Greek interlinear, at least, to follow this material with. So you can see when it's actually saying brother and when it's saying of somebody. That's why you want to have these things if you're really seriously interested in this, so you can, know what the actual terminology. If you had the Greek, you would know Jude says Judas. And if you had the Greek, you would know, because you could read that much Greek, and you could teach yourself to read that much Greek. It's not very difficult. And you could, the Greek fraternities, so sororities, so you'll basically know most of the letters of the Greek alphabet. Just about everybody knows from math and physics and things. They always use phi or delta or epsilon, or by the time you're through, you've got very few Greek letters left that you don't know, you can't recognize. So if you had the Greek, you could see these things pretty fast. And you don't even have to know Greek to see them. So I suggest that if you really want to, don't be afraid, go get one of those and you'll be happy that you have it for your future use as a grown-up human being the rest of your life. You won't regret having that. Because you're obviously interested in this subject, or you wouldn't be taking these courses. So I suggest that you do that. So, okay. So there in the letter of Jude, it's Judas, the brother of James, and I assume that's the same person. So as I start to make these connections and start the circle of these names going around, I think we finally will come out that Thomas is supposed to be Judas, the brother of James. But anyway, that's not how he comes out in the Mark Matthew Apostles. I agree with you. But that doesn't mean that they know more than me. In fact, not me, us. In fact, I think they know less than us. They're operating, you have to understand, communication was very poor. They're operating oral tradition. They're probably living in some place like Rome or Athens or far away from this area. Their data is very sketchy. And they're doing their best to reconstruct a story as they think they have it, to the best of their knowledge or prejudices even. So you don't want to, as long as you give up the idea of divinely inspired things in any document, whether it's Mosaic, Islamic, Christian, or Buddhist, and just take it as a normal document, then that they have some historical shortcomings shouldn't surprise you. Okay, so let's see. So Thomas sent Thaddeus. Now in the public registers, where the transactions of this king called Agabus are, and they're found down to the present day. So here's the actual letter that is written. He says, from Agabus to Jesus, and delivered by the courier called Ananias. Everyone see that? Now, Ananias, as I point out in my James book, in some details, an important person. And he will pop up in numerous contexts. One context that we haven't gotten to, but is very important where he pops up, is the story of the conversion of Queen Helen and her two sons, Izates and Monobasis. So there's another conversion story from another, in another context, that there's an Ananias. And that story is the Queen Helen story. And she has two sons, Izates, probably Isaac or something similar to that, and Monobasis. Now this Monobasis name obviously is from a different culture as Agabus. This is a Persian culture sphere. This is a Semitic culture sphere. And a lot of the kings in this culture sphere seem to be called Monobasis. The same as a lot of the kings in this culture sphere seem to be called Agabus. I'm not sure they're different. I'm not sure. You may just be getting the same people being called by a different name from a different cultural perspective. the same as you get Didymus Thomas, depending on what language you are using to refer to them. Now that doesn't, I've not proved anything. I'm just saying we have to always be careful. We have two parallel conversion stories told at exactly the same time about two conversions relating to a person called Ananias. Right? Where does the second story come from? He'll have it here in Eusebius. You've been reading Eusebius. You should know. Where does it? Very good air conditioning here today. We don't need it. I'm freezing here. Where does the second story come from?
Version of St. Paul?
No, Josephus. It's in Josephus. And it's also in the third context. Where's the other context that it's in? The Talmud. It's in the Talmud. Because the conversion is supposed to be to Judaism, not to, quote, Christianity, if it existed at this time. So the conversion of Helen, not Agabus now, and her two sons is to Judaism. And it's very celebrated in the Talmud in numerous references. And it's a very big part of Book 20. It starts Book 20 of Josephus' Antiquities. He didn't talk about it in the war, but in the Antiquities he's very big on it. And he knows it's very important. And one of the teachers is Ananias. And guess what? There's a third place that a conversion relating to a person called Ananias takes place. Where's that? Acts. And who's being converted? Right. So we're getting a confluence of three conversion stories centering around, all in Syria, one part or another, centering around a person called Ananias. That's very curious. That's how I get data from. I don't go by the story that's given me in the text. I go by the story that's given me in the text only up to that point. I realize the person telling the story may have his own axe to grind, whether it's Talmud, Christian, Josephus, or whatever. And then I look to try to figure out, some other aspect of it, and given all the data, try to make some conclusions on the basis of what I can see. Now, I think we're talking about the same Ananias in all these stories. Now, whether we have all or separate conversions or related, I wouldn't be willing to say. And what they're being converted to, I'm not sure. Whether it's Judaism, Christianity, or something in between. But anyway, let's leave that in abeyance. One thing, let's see, one thing in the